an ungrateful child. Still, a mother's love knows no bounds. He could no longer care for his elderly mother, so he decided to carry her up the mountain and leave her there. That evening, he told her they were going for a walk. She happily climbed onto his back, joyful like a child. All the way up, he thought only of climbing high enough to leave her behind. But then he noticed she had been quietly dropping beans along the path. Frustrated, he shouted, "Why are you scattering beans everywhere?" Her reply broke him. "Oh, my foolish child. I was afraid you might lose your way coming back alone. In this world, there is one person who will still love you, even when you're angry, unkind, or harsh with them. Even when you push them away or leave them behind. That person is your mother. So while they are still here, please don't speak with bitterness. Don't scold or shout. Because once they're gone, you will never find another soul in this world who loves you the way they did. If any of us, out of weakness, have at times caused sorrow or heartache to our parents, then let us have the courage to make amends in whatever way we can, even if they have already passed into eternal rest. Wouldn't you agree? There's a quiet ache we don't often talk about. The moment we realize our parents are growing old. I don't remember exactly when my father's hands started trembling as he held a spoon, or when my mother began forgetting things, repeating the same story, then asking, "Did I tell you this already?" At first I chuckled, then I fell silent. And one day I saw him standing by the doorway, suddenly smaller somehow. And it hit me. We are quietly witnessing the slow fading of the strongest presence we've ever known. The elderly don't need much. They just hope we'd speak more gently, that someone would sit and let them retell old stories as if hearing them for the first time, that if they drop a plate, no one sighs. They once steadied us through our unsteady steps. Now it's our turn to guide them through the final chapters of this life. To be a good person doesn't take grand gestures. Sometimes it's just the simple act of being tender to the ones who once carried the weight of our entire world. Because one day, they'll no longer be there to ask if we've eaten or remind us to take a coat when it gets cold. Love them while you can. Don't wait until all you can do is whisper their name into the wind. You'll often see crowds of parents waiting outside school gates for their children, but outside nursing homes, you rarely see children waiting for their parents. Today, I overheard a simple exchange that stopped me in my tracks. Why is it acceptable when a child wets themselves, but when an elderly person does, it's seen as a burden? The reply was soft. Because the elderly no longer have a mother. Just that, and it felt like someone had quietly pressed on my heart. It's true, isn't it? When a child makes a mess, someone rushes to clean them up, whispering, "It's okay, I'm here." But when an elderly person, equally fragile, equally helpless, struggles, there's often no one left to speak to them with that same gentleness. We often say, the elderly are like children. But here's the difference. Children arrive in this world to open arms. The elderly leave it, in silence. Children are clumsy and we smile. The elderly falter and we sigh. Sometimes just a sigh is enough to make them shrink back in silence. One impatient glance can make them feel like they've become a burden. Have you ever thought about how much quiet shame your parents must carry? The very people who spent their lives weathering storms for you. When they can no longer dress themselves, hold a spoon steadily, or walk without help. Of course you have, because they were once strong. They gave you the best of everything. They stood between you and the cold winds of the world. But time makes even the steadiest hands tremble. Even the surest steps slow down. Even the clearest eyes begin to blur. We pour boundless patience into our children. Why is it so hard to offer that same gentleness to our aging parents? Is it because we've grown too used to seeing them as unshakable that when they finally show weakness, we don't know how to hold them the way they once held us? No one wants to feel like a burden, and least of all, in their own home. So if one day your aging parents start repeating the same old stories or struggle with things that once came easily, even something as undignified as wetting themselves, please, don't sigh. Don't grow impatient. Instead, remember this. When you were small, who changed your diapers? Who wiped away your tears without complaint, without hesitation? The elderly, they were once children with mothers too, but now they only have you. So how do we become truly kind? Start here. Love an old person as if you were holding a child who no longer has anyone left to comfort them. The 3 fears that break a parent's heart in old age. As parents grow old, their children often begin to drift further away. It's not always intentional. It just happens. Because when parents are in their 70s or 80s, their children are likely in the thick of middle age, juggling careers, raising kids, managing bills, and quietly aging themselves. And in the chaos of life, there's simply not enough time to sit beside aging parents every day. But here's what's remarkable. Most elderly parents understand this, because they once lived that chapter too. They don't complain. They don't demand more than you can give. Instead, they quietly accept their loneliness if it means their children can live in peace. But even in their silence, they carry 3 quiet fears in old age. Because after a lifetime of sacrifice and love, they're still thinking of their children first. The first fear, they worry that their children are struggling, and they can no longer do anything to help. When we were little, we believed our parents could do anything. Dinner was always ready. Warm clothes magically appeared when the weather turned cold. School fees were paid. Hugs came at just the right time. They gave us everything they had, every ounce of love, energy, and strength. And yet somehow they always felt it wasn't enough. But now in old age, their hands are weaker. Their bodies tire easily. They can't rush in to fix things anymore. All they can do is ask, "Are you okay?" and silently carry the helpless ache of knowing you're hurting, but not being able to take the pain away. When you're young and facing life's storms, the ones who worry most are your parents. Friends might disappear. Even relatives may not be around. But your parents, their hearts break quietly every time they see you struggling. If there's anything they can still do to help, they won't hesitate. The second fear, they fear that their illness will drag you down with them. If you ever get a call saying your parents are sick, it's usually when things have already become serious. It's not that they never get sick. They just don't tell you when it's something minor. When they grow old and fragile, illness becomes a companion, but they often choose to bear it alone. They look after each other quietly and they spare you the worry. Don't trouble the children. This isn't something one parent says. It's something nearly all aging parents believe. Many of them choose not to move in with their children, not because they prefer to be alone, but because they're afraid of being a burden. They don't want to disrupt your life. They fear being the reason you're stressed or exhausted. That kind of fear is love in its purest, most selfless form. Third, they fear saying the wrong thing in front of their children. You'll know your parents have grown old when they start choosing their words more carefully around you. As people age, they tend to talk more. Sometimes they repeat themselves. They forget they've already told that story and say it again and again. It can get frustrating, and sometimes you snap. You raise your voice. You roll your eyes. You tell them to stop. But they don't fight back. They just fall silent and quietly carry that hurt inside. Elderly parents are like children in many ways. When you frown, they grow uneasy. When you smile, they brighten up. When you go silent, they feel uncertain. They no longer want to cause trouble. They just want to stay connected to you without being a burden. The strange thing about growing up is that we often become kinder to strangers while turning impatient with our own parents. We smile at colleagues. We joke with acquaintances. But when we come home, we snap. We blame stress, fatigue, or life's weight. And sometimes we blame our parents for not giving us more, for not doing enough. But among all the virtues, filial piety still stands first. Never resent those who gave you life. Treat them with gentleness, especially when they grow old. Aging is a tide that no one can resist. One generation follows another. And one day you too will stand where your parents are now. How you treat them today is the lesson your children will carry forward. When aging parents see their children move ahead without a steady hand to lean on, they worry. Not because they doubt you, but because they've walked those windy years before. They understand, and they carry your struggles as quietly as they once carried your small hands across the street. When you truly understand what your parents fear, you begin to grasp just how immense their love is. One day you will no longer hear your father calling you home for dinner. No more late-night calls from your mother reminding you to stay warm, to eat well, to take care of yourself. One day you will become an orphan, not in the legal sense, but in the quiet, soul-deep way of having no one left to worry for you like they did. As long as your parents are alive, the world still feels like it has a center. But when they are gone, there's no place that feels quite like home. So no matter how hard life gets, don't take it out on your parents. No matter how busy you are, find time to show them love. No matter how little you have, don't let them suffer in silence. Because the day they're no longer here, you'll realize no one will ever love you the same way again.
Every night at exactly 8 p.m., he shows up. Alone. Same coat, same silence. He doesn't withdraw money. He doesn't check his balance. He just stands there, gently resting his forehead against the ATM screen, as if it remembers something no one else does. At first I thought he was just lost in his mind. But then, one day, I learned the story. He didn't always come here alone. Before she moved abroad, his daughter used to meet him here every Friday. Same time, same place. She'd help him withdraw a small portion of her paycheck, just enough for the week. She said it made her feel like she was giving something back. They had a routine. He'd pretend he didn't know how to use the buttons, and she'd roll her eyes, laughing as she guided his hand to the right keys. They made that little corner of the city feel like home. No one ever confirmed what happened to her. No obituary, No goodbye, just silence. But every night, he shows up. Same time, same place. And he presses his forehead gently to the glass, like a memory trying to come back to life. Like he's listening, in case she still speaks through the machine. We chase so many things in life. Money, status, answers. But sometimes, what we miss most is simply a moment that meant something. He never asked for help, never cried out loud, just kept showing up, as if loyalty alone could bring her back. I don't know if she's alive somewhere, or if he knows more than he lets on. But I know this. Some people hold on to love in the only way they know how, even if it's just a quiet moment, in front of a machine that once connected them. And now, whenever I see an ATM at night, I wonder what stories it might still be holding.